Welcome to Empowering Educators Summit. I'm so pleased to welcome you, Ms. Summer Meyer, to this summit with your expertise in imagining mindfulness, and in particular, the mindfulness-based stress reduction technique.
Right.
We got to meet at the Education 2.0 conference where you won an award for an outstanding leader in education. And I'm very, very pleased to bring your wisdom here to share with us today.
Thank you so much.
So I say welcome and tell us about who you are and your work in the world.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for attending and listening to us. Um, yeah, so what I currently do, I am the CEO of a small company called Imagine Mindfulness, and our core program is teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction. Now, mindfulness-based stress reduction is a modality that was created by John Kabat-Zinn back in the 70s. So it's one of the most researched, evidence-based, research-based mindfulness programs that are around in the world, really. At this point, there are thousands of instructors. Some of these people are actually officially certified, which is quite a process to go through, but two of my teachers did actually go through that. So we teach MBSR, which is short for mindfulness-based stress reduction, live online all over the world. So how did I even come to this place? So to tell you a little bit more about myself, I was always a very intensely curious child. I grew up in the Netherlands and in Belgium, in the woods, in farm country. So I always roamed through nature, and I was always curious about, why does this work? Why does this happen? What does this mean? And as I grew up, that interest extended itself towards people. So I ended up getting a degree in educational psychology. And then I moved to the United States. And my career path took a few different turns at that point. I did at some point become interested in Eastern philosophy because the traditional counseling model didn't really seem to work for everything that I helped my clients with. So I went into energy medicine and I learned how to meditate. And I started a center where we did group sessions. And I really specialized in working with children who were diagnosed with ADHD, which often wasn't grounded, in my experience, in any neurological problems. It was mostly because they were very unique children who did not know how to express themselves. And I really found that the mindfulness and meditation techniques and awareness techniques really, really helped these children. Along the way, I also became interested in sustainability, and I got a master's in public administration in sustainable development. Because as I was looking at how the world works and how do we give meaning to it, it became clear that everything is connected. This is something we already know, when we work with people too. So the sustainability kind of brought me back into environment and climate and how people work with that, which then, coming full circle, actually got me back into mindfulness, because even in the sustainability movement, there is a lot of self-knowledge that was missing, a lot of passionate people who really wanted to help the world and make the world a better place, but who were missing these elements of self-knowledge and self-care more than anything else. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is really a modality that gives you tools to learn how to take care of yourself. And when you take care of yourself, as we all know, you can take care of other people. So it really starts with yourself. So that's kind of the way in which I came back to mindfulness-based stress reduction.
And it really is so interesting when you talk about it really starting from a place of being interested in energy and going into the Eastern philosophies to explore
Yeah.
that. And then how is it relating to children and then to nature and then back to self.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm really curious, especially about your experience in transformation and your experiences with the ADHD children, how you were able to create that transformation, and also, the research that backs that up.
Yeah.
So Talk to us about that if you would.
Where to start? So mindfulness, maybe the best place to start is to talk about mindfulness and what is mindfulness actually. Now
Yes.
there are many definitions out in the world, and they, are more simple or more complicated. Imagine mindfulness has created its own definition, and it goes like this: it's intentional, non-judgmental awareness through attention, right here, right now, with curiosity and compassion.
That
So
bears repeating.
intentional, non-judgmental awareness through attention, right here, right now, with curiosity and compassion. And especially the curiosity and compassion part is something that we started to realize during our classes, how important those are. And then, so the way we get to that place in the MBSR modality is through formal practice, which is meditation. And I can come back in a second and kind of tell you what we think meditation is about. And the informal practice, which is the daily life practice of becoming aware of your place in the world, how your actions impact others, how you are impacted by others' thoughts and emotions. So it's really a working together of those two. The more you practice the formal, the meditation will really give you an influence on your daily life, and your awareness in daily life gives you then food for thought when you go back into the meditative state. So it's a really beautiful full interplay. Now, one of the things we emphasize always in our classes, what is meditation? What is it not? Because a lot of people think you have to empty your mind. You have to sit on a cushion for hours. You have to look for a certain outcome.
You have to have your eyes closed.
Exactly. And that can be it. But it
Mhm.
really is a very limiting way of looking at meditation. So one thing that we do know what meditation is to bring your mind to one thing, whatever that might be. Focus on your body, on your thoughts. Maybe you have a sentence you want to look at, maybe you have a situation, but it's this bringing your mind back to that one focus. And every time you realize that you wander away from that focus, you bring your mind back. You wander and you bring it back. And our minds wander. That's what it is to be human. There is nothing wrong with it. You cannot empty your mind. We generate thoughts. It's the way it is. So meditation is really this activity of mindfulness. It is an active learning how to become mindful. And that requires practice, some commitment, maybe some willpower and discipline, but everything is workable. So it's really kind of a simple way of bringing your mind back to one thing. So it's not always easy, but it is the simple concept of bringing your mind back.
Let me ask you about that. So let's say
Mhm.
my one thing is taking a walk within the forest. All right. I'm going to bring
Mhm.
myself into that peaceful place.
Right, right.
Well, then my mind has the picture of the sunlight coming through the trees, and then it goes up to the leaves, and oh, how those look bright green. And then I come into the smell of the forest. I mean, does that count as one thing?
That counts as one thing. We call that open awareness and open mind. You are still focusing on being present in the forest. You are realizing different elements of it. But as long as you are present to the fact that you are walking in the forest and enjoying the beauty, that is being in a state of open mind. So, where you go out of meditation is when you start thinking about why is it this way? Or, well, maybe not so much why is it a way. I like green better than red. Why is that tree so ugly? Once our opinions and kind of values come into it, that's when you walk off the path of being in a meditative state. So as long as your focus is on that which is right in front of you, right here, right now, even if that is multiple things during your walk, you are still in a meditative state. That's how we
Okay,
look at that.
good. Tell us more about the
So,
research and what your experience has been, how it shows up.
yeah, so MBSR, and I will not be able to quote you names and titles of papers, but MBSR has shown to help with concentration and focus. It has helped people deal with pain issues. Because the big thing about living. And my subtitle kind of said that too, you know, these my subtitle was imagining mindfulness practices that help you change how you relate to your experiences. So, and pain is a beautiful example from that. Pain was originally started in the body, and then the mind actually remembered that. So a lot of pain, especially chronic pain issues, are not per se held in the body. It's your brain that holds the memory of that pain. So if you learn how to become more mindful, it makes it, you can learn how to shift your awareness away from the pain, not by not wanting it, but by accepting it. So there is a whole lot of contradiction in this sometimes. The whole mindfulness is based about accepting what is right here, right now for you, even if that is pain. And it's within this acceptance that there is lessening of attention on that which we find unpleasant or negative.
That is really interesting.
It is a very fascinating subject. Imagine Mindfulness actually has a group of our alumni who struggle with chronic pain, and they are helping to set up a program to help people move through that pain. So it's an interesting thing. One of the concepts in mindfulness is embodied immediacy. And so you can think of it this way. You're eating very spicy Thai food and it hurts your mouth, right? But there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is accept it and be present with it until it dissipates. And turns out in research that this kind of contradiction of not resisting that which is unpleasant in the end helps you move through it and accept it, which lessens your aversion to it. Because we do know that, right? I mean, the more we fight against something, the more it shows up for us and the worse it becomes. So the whole practice is being present with it and accepting and moving through that then.
And what if those are really difficult emotions?
The answer is the same.
Just be present to it.
Just be present with it. And we really, in the mindfulness work that we do, we really try to rephrase all these more negative words to, is it pleasant, neutral, or unpleasant? That kind of takes the charge out of it a little bit. So we still have preferences for or against, but we try to see it. Actually reminds me of a story that I sometimes tell. You know, we all create meaning and opinions in the world, and that includes what is painful or what isn't painful, what is pleasant or what isn't unpleasant. That is different for everybody, right? So there's this great story, comes somewhere from the Middle East, where there is a son who asks his father, you know, like an 11-year-old boy who asks his father, what is it to be happy? I want to be happy. And the father says, okay, let's go on a little trip. So they both take their backpacks and they take their donkey. And so the first day, the son sits on the donkey's back with his backpack, and the father walks alongside, and they meet people along the way. And people go, oh, whoa, this son, he's really not taking care of his father. You know, the father is getting older. What is he doing on a donkey? So day number 2, the roles are switched. The father's on the donkey. The son walks next to him. They both have the backpacks on. They meet people, and people go, wow, this father, how selfish, you know? His son is so young. Why isn't he on the donkey? So and the story goes on. Day 3, both of them are on the donkey, and people go, oh, wow, animal abuse. Why are they sitting on a donkey together? You know, day 4, they walk next to the donkey, and people go, don't they know what donkeys are for? Right? So this whole idea that everybody has their own way to give meaning to the world, their own opinions about the world. So, you know, this kind of reminds me of that, because of course, happiness can be found in if we find our meaning, if we find our reason to do what we are doing. If, you know, if the only thing that we see in life is how we experience it. It is our perception of our reality that gives us whatever is unpleasant or pleasant, or what we have to work with. So that whole idea of perception, how we see things and how we interpret things, that's for me kind of the core of awareness, learning how to get to know that about yourself.
And that awareness still seems mental. How does the mental merge in with the emotional in terms of the balance of the two?
That's a very good question. Right. Yeah. So one of the foundational meditations for MBSR is a body scan. They have noticed that from the beginning. So we hold emotions in our bodies. And by learning how to tune into our bodies, can we learn how to be present with whatever comes up, as I described earlier, and then watch that dissipate. Because there's some research that says that emotions really, and strong emotions really only last for a minute and a half, and then they dissipate. Now, what most people do is they refocus and refocus and refocus and refocus on that. And so your unpleasantness keeps on going. But if you learn how to sit just with, even even doing this interview with you, you get a little bit of churning in your stomach. You sit
Mhm.
with that for a minute, you continue breathing through it, you will watch it dissipate, unless your thoughts come up again to say, oh, I'm really nervous, and then you
Mhm.
can re-engage that. So within MBSR, there is a huge, I mean, it's the foundational meditation is the body scan, because you'll be surprised how many people really are not in touch with their bodies. We are so busy, we tend to ignore it.
And so in the body scan, as you come across, there's like a something that's calling your attention in the body scan. And
Yep,
then you allow your awareness to be with it and
be
just
there.
reside with it
Yes,
and witness
and
and
witness
breathe, right? The breath
and
is a
breathe,
part.
right? And watch it dissipate, because it will. If you
Allow it
don't
to
fight
dissipate.
against it, you allow it. It's the acceptance. And the way I started out too, being an intentionally curious child, and the end of our definition of mindfulness too, compassion and curiosity. Curiosity is a really, really, really helpful element to bring into mindfulness. If you go, I don't feel comfortable, I wonder, then you already, there's a sense of acceptance already just from asking the question. Instead of saying, I don't want to feel this way, this hurts. And everything pulls inward, and the tension amplifies the feeling that you have. So the idea of sitting with it and breathing with it and watching it move through your body, because our bodies are part of who we are. And it's an interesting thing to come back to the mind, body, spirit, because I really believe that spirit resides in our body. It also somehow resides in our mind. I have an interesting thing to say about that in just a little bit. But accepting we are spirit includes accepting our bodies and working with our bodies, which is something that's often very hard to do in our modern society, because we feel a lot of stress, we feel a lot of busyness, we really don't have time to pay attention to our body. So to make it a practice to really become in touch with, once again, it's the word for it is embodied immediacy, that developing a connection with your body, who it's very much part of who you are.
And that really says so much, doesn't it? Embodied
It does.
immediacy, right here, right now, in my body, connected.
Yep, yep.
And tell us more about what spirit is to you. What does that mean? Because I think many people relate to spirit as a divine source outside of themselves. And
Right.
yet, in the way you're speaking about it, I hear it very much integrated within. And how does
Yeah,
that transition?
these are difficult topics to discuss, because people do have different opinions on that. And then we're not even talking about soul. um,
Mhm.
in our work, and maybe I cannot just say in our work, maybe I have to say the way I look at the world. Um, Spirit is both something individual and something that's connected to the whole. That's how I think about that, because everything is connected. and spirit has an individuality within us. So that's really how I look at that. So
Very
we talk
clearly.
about our body is our temple, right? And our spirit resides in our body. Then I would like to bring mind into it, because I touched on that a little bit earlier. Um, See, the way I look at it this way, I think from small on, children have an open mind, they have that curiosity, and then we slowly start, adding these norms and values of our society onto them. And one way to look at that is that everybody from a smaller age on then starts kind of building a house that is based on their life experiences and the meaning that they give to that, and then the opinions and the values they bring to that. So as we age more, our house gets kind of bigger walls and it might get bigger, and we have all these opinions about what should be, what is right, what must be. And so we're kind of almost building a little bit of a prison for a spirit, because the world is bigger than just these things that we feel are meaningful to us. So the whole work in mindfulness and in awareness is to open up and see what is out there, this curiosity, to have more of an open mind. That's how we can learn and grow spiritually, intellectually. So it's like your body is a temple for your spirit, but your mind is equally a temple for your spirit if we build this house of opinions and values in such a way that it becomes as beautiful as that. So for me, spirit sits in those two places. And of course, they're connected, right? They're not separate. Our mind is in our body is our mind. I mean, we know that our mind isn't the only thing that has thinking cells. In our guts, we also have all these cells and hormones, right? So we are really one big integrated. And so spirit sits there, and because everything is connected, we're also connected to the outside world, how we show
Mhm.
up, other spirits in it. So it's this interplay. This is why compassion and curiosity is just so important. Compassion for self, compassion for others, and then being curious as to why we are where we are. Why do we believe what we believe? Why, that meaning giving that we can develop and that can grow over time.
Which really brings it back to that intentional non-judgmental. That was
Yeah,
a really profound piece, because I can see how it would be so limiting if we're like, well, it should be this way. And we can often be the hardest even on ourselves, like,
absolutely.
I should be this way, I should be that way,
Yep,
and so the compassionate acceptance is really like, that's where the breath enters, right?
absolutely. Yep, yep. And it's one of the hardest things for people to practice. One
Mm.
of our meditations is loving kindness, and you can find those online in any kind of variation. And, we often start with self compassion, which is really hard for people to do. Sometimes we move our meditations around, starting with loved ones, making the circle bigger. And then people can come back and say, hey, but if I gave that to all of the other people around me and the planet, maybe I can then also give that to myself. So it's sometimes fascinating to watch how people struggle with self-compassion, that critical voice, in our head. And once again, that's where meditation comes in. You learn how to become aware of your critical voice by developing the discipline that when your mind wanders, you can bring it back.
You had told us that you wanted to come back to a story, I think, when you mentioned the mind part, you had said, and I,
That was the story about the house, how we built a house. And for me, it is a really beautiful way to imagine that. So as a child, you have a tiny little hut because you don't have too many set ways in which you think yet. But as we grow, and especially in the teenage years, because we want some certainty, right? We can build bigger walls, and I mean, we can see what's going on in the world, right? We get this us them thing happening. So for me, to imagine creating a home for your spirit to live that is geared towards compassion and curiosity and openness instead of being stuck in the shoulds, coulds, rights, wrongs, all of that. So I guess it's more a metaphor than a story as such.
Is
But
that like the beginning part of facilitating the integration of mind, body, spirit is to imagine into it? Like, what's the relationship of the imagining part?
I'm not entirely sure
Like, wait,
I
the
understand your question.
imagination, imagine
Mhm. The curiosity,
is
right?
the, yes, so that's really bringing in the curiosity and, the willingness to be compassionate also.
Right, 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 right.
Um, but to me, I guess the imagine is really the forming the pictures. So I'm talking about thinking about the house building, right? And
Mhm.
going from the small hut to the larger house. And so when we begin that process, you do you create like this is the set image that that you want to imagine, or is it do you create an open context and imagine into it?
Okay, I understand where you're going with this. Um, it's actually something I wanted to touch on when I think about how this is kind of applicable to education and on many different levels. Um, so the short answer is it is a continuously evolving building, a continuously involving image. Um, a lot of people come to mindfulness and to our classes when they are really very stressed. And what we see is that they have boxed themselves in. We do some exercises around think outside of the box, and really, there is no box in the first place. So, for a lot of adults, and age really doesn't matter. You can have a 30-year-old that is boxed in, or you can have a 70-year-old that has an open mind, right? So, age really doesn't really matter so much. It's life circumstances that has created these walls where we can see no longer past. So in those situations, what we try to do is we to stick with the metaphor, we throw some doors open and we open some windows, and we see what else is out there. You teach this embodied immediacy, this awareness of body, and often that is already hugely helpful because people hold so much in their bodies. When we talk about children, um, I have two adult children at this point. I was introduced to this work when they were in preschool. I went to a co-op nursery school where I at some point also became teacher because it was a very experiential learning, centered environment. And so what I saw modeled there, and I have continued to model, is to help children along the way keep the doors and the windows open. So it's inevitable that we form a worldview, but if you call out to children that when they are getting very upset, for instance, to point out to them where that anger is held in their body and that it is okay and that you can breathe through it and you can let it go, you start opening. Well, you build less walls, let's put it like that. So this is why I find that work so important for children, because if we as educators or as parents are aware of this starting to happen to us, we can catch it in our children by giving them permission to be open to, of course, without harming anybody. It's always within that field, but they can express themselves, and it is okay to have all these emotions. And yes, you feel that in your body. Let's become aware of it and breathe through it, and then you can move on because it will pass.
And
Experiences, motions come and go all the time. There's no way around that.
that's a point where the educators can bring their curiosity, like, where do
Right.
you feel that, right? Rather than
Exactly.
necessarily
Yep,
telling
yep, yep,
them,
yep,
this is a point for the child to lead and
yep.
just be empowered to allow the feelings.
Absolutely, absolutely. And too much, it might have changed in some ways a little bit in certain generations, but that being told that, you can't express yourself, you have to be quiet, especially in the classroom, right? Um,
Mhm.
And that contributes to building the thicker walls along the way. And I do understand, I mean, not all schools have the resources for teachers to even have that kind of personal interaction with their students, which is really sad and yet part of the reality, right?
And yet that's what we're helping to create here,
Helping
is
to
the
change. Exactly.
awareness
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
need.
yeah,
Because, I
yeah,
mean, when you talk about it being all energy, it is all energy. And what do we do with the energy? Are we
yeah,
forcing it in and like, you
exactly.
better learn, versus, do you want to learn?
Yeah,
Are you ready to learn? Are you curious? Because that emotional safety is
yeah.
what opens the mind, it opens the curiosity and the imagination then.
It's absolutely, absolutely true. Yeah. And I think for adults, this is why I love the work that I do, because we have people from all over the world, from all walks of lives. But it's, spreading the web. I think adults need to model that,
Well,
right? And
tell us
unless we
about
know it ourselves, we cannot model it or teach it to anybody else either.
tell us about your website and how it does work globally, and what it is
Yeah,
that
so we
is going on
we
there.
right. We started this we're in our sixth year. We have from the beginning been live online before COVID even hit. Actually, when COVID started, we had a lot of in-person teachers. Traditionally, it's been taught in person in smaller groups. So when COVID hit, we had lots of those teachers reaching out to us to say, "Hey, how are you guys doing that?" So we just use Zoom. We keep our classes small. Every class has two teachers, and often somebody who facilitates the technical part. We max out at about 16 students. They come from all over the world. The way we set up our times, and usually, so MBSR is an 8-week program, and you commit to 2.5 hours each week of in-class time. And then there's some homework, which includes both meditations and some what we call the informal practice. They're exercises in your daily life. Keep track every day for a week of pleasant things that happen to you. Keep track every week of difficult communications that you have. So there's both the formal meditation part, and then there's an informal daily life assignment. And so the classes, for the first hour, we meditate. They're usually two different kinds of meditations. Then we break out in small groups of 2 or 3 people, and it's just the students. There is no instructor present, and so we exchange experiences from the past week. And they really are the favorite 15 minutes of all our students. And then we come back in a big group and we have a bigger group discussion. And sometimes there is a bit of presentation in terms of knowledge based. So that's kind of what the classes look like. I guess maybe this is a time also to point out that we are donation based. So we operate from this Buddhist principle of dana, generosity. So our classes are a $50 registration fee just to help us offset at least our admin costs. But after that, we ask people to contribute what they can and what they
That
feel it was worth it.
that free gift, if they want to make a free gift, is just woven into your website then.
It's
Like,
already
once,
woven into a
yeah.
model. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And again, that website is imaginemindfulness.com.
.com. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's an 8-week program, mindfulness based,
Stress reduction.
stress reduction. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So much good information. I'm
Thank you.
really impressed with how relevant and
Yeah.
important this kind of information is, not only for educators, but all of us in the process of becoming more aware and, evolving ourselves, basically.
Yeah. And it comes individually with a lot more ease and peace.
And when we
And
do the work
through right,
ourselves
and through that
in the
everybody else
classroom.
around us.
Pardon?
And through being in that space yourself, you spread that to the people around you.
Yeah.
And it is not about being calm and sitting on a cushion, like I said earlier. It's about fully being present with whichever comes your way,
Even the difficult parts.
even even the unpleasant parts.
The
Yeah,
unpleasant, yes.
yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
liked that. It's pleasant or unpleasant,
Or neutral.
or neutral.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
really it does, like, take the charge out, doesn't
It
it?
takes the charge out, right? And when you take the charge out of it, it's like taking a breath. When you take the charge out of it a little bit, your mind opens up.
Mm.
And then it's easier to be compassionate and curious. It's when we do this that the reacting. So one big concept in mindfulness-based stress reduction too is learning to respond instead of react. A
Ooh.
lot of what goes on is reacting. And so through our tools, we help people to respond by taking a breath, by saying to yourself, stop, stop, take a breath, observe what's going on, and then proceed. And the more you practice it, it really only takes a split second. And, we all still blow off steam because we're human.
Right.
And it
Being
is easier to
compassionate.
catch you and to have self-compassion then, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is interesting though, because I understand that part. It's really like, okay, I'm going to be peaceful and mindful,
I
and
know, I know,
and
I
then
know.
it's like, but those emotions are having my, blood rising, or whatever expression
I
you want
know.
to say. And so it is about practice, just like
Yep,
riding a bike,
yep,
right? We have to, oh, now I can really get up and pedal fast and easy now.
yep.
So
Yeah,
having
and
that,
we really encourage, I mean, just 10 minutes in the morning of sitting quietly and trying to focus your mind to one thing, and 10 minutes at night. It's a beautiful place to start. A lot of people don't go into this work because they have these impressions of, I have to be Zen, I have to be quiet forever. And it really isn't. I mean, originally, that's how it was developed, but we live in a different world than that. And just there's research that shows too that just 10 minutes a day consistently will already start building that kind of resiliency, and it'll teach you how to respond instead of blowing off steam. It's really an amazing, modality.
well,
Yeah.
your positive energy certainly reflects that, Summer. And I just am so pleased for you to share your wisdom.
Thank
Let's
you.
put this back to, I'm very, very pleased to have all the links to your contact information and your website to further investigate for yourself. This is well worth making it a practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah. And so actually then to say a little bit more, so our website under resources are meditations, and they are also for free. We don't have a wall up or anything like that. So if anybody wants to just check out and see what we do and what they're like, you can find us on our website also. We really are so passionate about spreading these skills, so we can create a world where people are compassionate to each other, and help to make this a place where we all can thrive. So this is why we offer them the way we do, and our global community is just really awesome. It's really one of the best parts. But we have people in South Africa, in China, in Indonesia, all over
wow.
Europe. So it's that connection. Because I mean, we know this too, right? It's when we see people one on one, that's when we feel our shared humanity.
Yes.
Right? It is when we objectify the they versus us, that's when a lot of pain starts. And so we're really about creating this one-on-one,
Seeing there's far more
helping each other grow.
similarities.
Hmm?
I'm sorry, I was saying, seeing there's far more similarities than
Yep.
differences.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. That
And I
shared
had
humanity.
interrupted your statement. What was that you said?
No, no, that's it's all good.
Okay. Well, I
You're
just salute your
wonderful.
generous spirit, because it really does make it inviting. And I'm eager to get on board.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank
Mm.
you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I'll just say namaste to you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and thank you, Jill, for creating this opportunity for people to speak about what they do, and share that with others. It's very much in the spirit
I'm
of
very
us.
much, Barbara Marx Hubbard had the concept of conscious or self-conscious, no, conscious evolution, excuse
Yeah.
me, conscious evolution, where we are consciously evolving ourselves. And it really is the day and age to be doing it ever more intentionally.
Yeah. Can I say one last thing?
Yes, please.
That is actually also, so I've been most of my life really interested in what is love actually.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Deep.
And it is this idea that you extend your will, your effort to nurture your spiritual growth and other people's spiritual growth, extending one's will to nurture your own and others' spiritual growth. And for me, we do our work with that in mind. That's what love is for us.
And I feel it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's brings it to the energy when I can, it's like, yes, it is a felt sense that
Yeah.
comes through.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Pearls of wisdom indeed.
So thanks
Bless you
again.
and thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.